So the whole theme of the conference is about legends. And I truly believe, being about legends, we're talking about belief in yourself. We are all BNI. Do you agree we believe in ourselves? Again, let's do this loud. Come on, do you believe in yourselves? Yeah, that's better. Right. We also have that belief that the others have in you. Do we not believe our members are going to do well? Do we believe our directors are going to do well? Absolutely. And the other one is the belief you have in others. Now I'm going to take you on a bit of a journey. It'll be a fun journey, but it'll be a journey. And the first one is the belief in yourself where BNI is concerned. So 15 years ago, I went to my first ever BNI convention in Long Beach. Was anybody there? Yeah, it's great. I'd just become a direct consultant. I sat there in absolute awe of the caliber of people coming on the stage. My eyes were wide open, my mouth was open, and I'm going, this is amazing. I want to be part of this. I went home, and I live in a little town in Scotland called Leith. And I went to visit my mother about 3-4 days later. And I went in, and my mum said, how did you get on in Los Angeles, as you do? And I said, I went to the BNI convention. She said, what did you think of it? I went, it was incredible, Mum. I was in a room. I truly believe I have found my tribe. I have found my clan. I want to be part of this. And she said, so what's next? I said, well, I want to own this region. She went, that's good. What else? I said, I would love, absolutely love, to get up on that stage and actually stand up at a global convention and deliver a keynote. And she said to me, if you believe you can, you can. And I believe in you, you'll do it. So, Mum, here I am. Oh, that was emotional there. I felt like going right through me. So what I want to do is I want to take you on a bit of a journey. And 21 years ago, our son, George, let's take you right back to the hospital. So for those of you that have had children, we're in the hospital. They'd already scanned the baby and said he's extended breech. And for those of you that don't know what extended breech is, it means the bottom is engaged. And then one side goes here and the legs go up here. And there's no chance he's going to be born that way. So they said, we'll have to do a C-section. So Dion and I were like, yeah, that's absolutely fine. Dion's going, why are you saying it's fine? It's me that's having to go through it. But so we went in. And there was music playing, and everybody was all happy, and we put on the robes, and you go in, and you've got the clogs, and it was just a great feeling. And they took George out of Dion, and as they took George out, they all looked at each other, and the energy just went, and they turned the music off, and some of the nurses left. And then they took George away into another room, and Dion's going, is everything okay? And for those that know me, my classic line is, it's fine. And I'm going, it's fine, it'll be okay. And then they came through and they said, Mr. Reed, could you come through with us? Now, we've got 2 older daughters, and I'm already going, there's something not fine here. So I went into the room, and there is 5 specialists standing in front of me, top in their field. And they said, we have grave concerns about your son. And I said, really? Yeah. And he's lying on this table, and they're poking and prodding him and putting lights in his eyes and things. I said, what's up? And they said, well, we believe he's blind. We also believe he's potentially deaf. He has deformed hands. He has a cleft palate. He's got a deformed shoulder. He's got dislocated hips. And he's paralyzed down the side of his face. And then they came out with a classic line. How would you like us to proceed? Yeah, that's a sharp and take a breath. And I said, wrap him up and I'll take him back to his mum. And they went, you don't understand. how would you like us to proceed? And I said, no, you don't understand because I don't believe you're correct. Ah, well, we think you're in denial. You think wherever you want to think I am. I am not in denial. You're wrong. He'll be fine. So we wrapped George up and we took him back out. And it's really strange because we were taken back up to the ward upstairs and they pushed us along in a trolley. And Dion's going, is everything okay? And I'm going, everything's fine, it'll be okay. And instead of putting us into a main ward, they put us into a room. And Dion's like, what's happened? I said, well, they're telling me there's all this stuff wrong with George. But it's not. He's going to be okay. And she went, I know he is. I said, right, we both agree that? Yeah, absolutely. Then the door opens, and in walks a nurse with a tray. And she trips, and she drops the tray, and it clatters on the floor. And guess what happened? George jumped. And I turned to Dion and went, deaf is he? 2 hours later, the people who check out the eyes and everything, the Princess Margaret Eye Hospital came in, put lights into his eyes and said, okay, it was a bit unusual. He was born with his eyes open and he doesn't seem to be able to blink, but everything's there to tell us that his eyes are absolutely fine. It's okay. So he's not blind. Because he was squashed, his hands were all twisted. So that was the deformed hands. They weren't deformed. Within 2 hours, they straightened out. They were absolutely fine. He didn't have a cleft palate. He had a very high roof to his mouth. Totally different thing. He didn't have deformed shoulders, because the same thing. He was all squashed when he came out. My favourite one was the dislocated hips, because about 4 weeks later, we went back into the hospital. And just to give you an idea of how dislocated hips works, the hips like this, and the bone going into them is like this. So this moves around and wobbles. 4 weeks later, we go in, and it is now grown round the hip. And the specialist came out and said, is this the same baby I saw 4 weeks ago? And we were like, yeah, absolutely. She said, if I hadn't seen this for myself, I wouldn't have believed it. She said, I have heard of this happening. It's like 1 in 500,000 it happens to. Do you mind if I keep the photographs of the x-rays? Do you mind if I use George in a book? I went, no. And the paralyzed down his face was because he had a condition called Mebius syndrome. Now, most of you are probably not aware what Mebius syndrome is, but Mebius syndrome is where the 6th and 7th cranial nerve doesn't form. And it does cause facial paralysis, but in George's case, it's down one side, but George doesn't have the ability to blink. And do you know what? He loves that, because he never misses anything. Do you know I caught him at school having bets with other kids to see who would blink first? Absolutely true. But the thing is that he also doesn't have any lateral eye movement. So where you and I would look side to side, George actually has to turn his head. But he deals with that. The one thing we had to be very careful with George was, if he does go out into bright sunlight, because he doesn't blink, it can damage his eyes. So from a very early age, he wore sunglasses. You used to see the Reed family walking around the village where every one of us had sunglasses on, including the baby and the dog. We got special ones for the dog. And that way, he was actually okay with us. Would you like to see what he looked like? So this is George. The biggest blue eyes ever. And the thing is that the great thing about is, I really go back to this. When you believe in somebody, it can positively change their life and yours. And what happened next was, George took us on a journey, all of us. This is George with his 2 big sisters and our dog. He used to love that Tigger outfit. Just so you know, we didn't tell his big sisters he had Mebius syndrome. We didn't tell them he had a condition. We didn't tell them any of this because we wanted them to treat him the way you would treat a little brother. And my goodness, did they treat him like that. He got bounced around the house and everything. They didn't care. A couple of years later, we give birth to another one. This is Erin. Absolutely loves our big brother. And when you see the 4 of them together, you couldn't have got a tighter family, but again, we're outside, George has got his sunglasses on, and we keep an eye on him. But one of the things we found was, Dion and I went to a support group because nobody had heard of Moebius syndrome. And these people were queuing up to tell us everything George couldn't do, rather than everything he could do. And I came away from there feeling quite down about this, because I'm like, if you keep telling a child it won't be able to do something, it won't even attempt it. So we took the decision, no, we're not doing that. So one of the biggies was they told us George would never be able to cycle a bicycle. So this is George with his bike and his stabilizers. Now, for those that know me, I ride motorbikes. I've always ridden them, always will. And we took him up the park, and we took him round the park. He was absolutely fine. And I'm going, there's no problem here. Took the stabilizers off. And you know what you do? You hold the back, and you run, and you let go, thump. And we did it again, let's go, thump. We did this for a whole afternoon till the poor lamb was covered black and blue. He just couldn't get this right. We tried everything. We held on to him. He could not balance. And even though he got the pedals going, the balance wasn't there. And what we would do is go, George, because he got going a wee bit, and we'd go, George, watch out for the tree. Boom, hit the tree. George, watch out for the litter bin. Boom, hit the litter bin. And then Dion said to me, because Dion used to do a lot of show jumping, and she had horses. And Dion said, you know, when you jump a jump in a show jumping event, as soon as you land, you look to the next jump, and the horse moves, because it feels that movement. Maybe because we're saying to George, don't hit the tree, he's looking at the tree and driving into the tree. Maybe don't hit the bin, he's looking at the bin and driving into the bin. So Dion stood in front of him, I stood behind him, and she must have run backwards about 1/4 of a mile, going, George, to me, to me, to me, and he cycled 1/4 of a mile. And Dion said, okay, he can do that in a straight line. I said, yeah, but George likes to work things through. And she went, what do you mean? I said, George, you know how you really wanted that camera? He went, yeah. I said, you cycle 3 times round this park on your own. You learn how to ride this bike by looking at where you want to go, and I will buy you a camera. Dion is sitting at the front there, smiling and laughing, because it cost me a fortune, because he did it. He did it. Within 3 weeks, he'd learnt to cycle a bike. The only kid I've ever known with Moebius that's actually been able to do that. But he just taught himself a different way to do it. And that's what this is about. Life doesn't always give you great results. You just have to find another way of doing it. So, at this point, George is now about, must be about 5 or 6. And I said to Dion, we can't just stop it there. He's really doing stuff. How about we set up a research trust? And Dion was like, okay, how do we do that? Oh, I don't know. Let's just get started. Right, what will we do then? I know. How about I meet up with the executive director of BNI in my region, and we'll have a wee thought. And we genuinely sat down over a cup of tea and came up with an idea. It was called Kilts Across America. The 2 of us were going to ride across America on Harleys wearing kilts. That way, we would actually raise awareness. This is us. This is us. So, yeah, absolutely. So we posted some of this on Facebook, and we did various things like that. And a woman gets in touch with us from America and said, I want to help you. And this is when we go back to the belief in yourself, because we believed we could do it. We believed that others would have in us, and we'd have that belief in others. So she told us that she'd organized all the different clans across America. We were going to leave from Boston, right to New York, right down to Washington, and all the way to LA. It was something like 60 miles short of 4,000 miles. Yeah, and she was getting us looked after by all the different clan associations. We get over to America, and it was all fabrication. It wasn't true. She hadn't done anything. And I remember sitting with my executive director, Ian, and he's going, what are we going to do? And I went, believe in ourselves. Give me the phone. So I phoned up Dion. How do you fancy driving a 9-berth RV across America. And she went, I take it I'm bringing the kids. I went, yeah. So Dion actually said, I'll meet you down in Manassas. So we drove from Boston to New York all the way down to Manassas. Now, for those that know me, know that I tend to have gut instincts and feelings, and I think you should always go with that. So we ride all the way down to Manassas. It's 1:15 in the morning, and I turned to Ian and I said, first time in America, I went, go and tell me something. What is that? I said, what is an IHOP? And he said, International House of Pancakes. I went, brilliant, 1:15, we're going. And he went, I am not going to a pancake shop at 1:15 in the morning. I went, you need to come with me. This is going to be amazing. Why is it going to be amazing? I don't know, but let's just go. So we went, and we walked in, and as we walked in, there was a policewoman sitting at a table. And I said, hi, how are you? And she went, oh, I love your kilt. And I said, yeah, it's nice, isn't it? And she went, yeah. And we sat down, and I stopped, and I thought, nah, something really gets to you in your head? So I walked back up and I went, by the way, I'm Colin. And she went, by the way, I'm Meg. I'm a lieutenant in the police force. I went, great, nice to meet you, Meg. She says, what is it you're doing? I told her we're doing. That's great. Went back down, sat down, and Ian went, well? And I went, I don't know, let's just see what happens. Following morning, 8 o'clock, bang, bang, bang on the door. Open the door, policewoman standing there, tray of donuts, cup of coffee for both of us. Here, breakfast from America. Oh, fantastic. Walked back in, turned to Ian. There you go, we got our breakfast. And he laughed. Came back in. 2 hours later, on the door, opened the door. Meg standing there again. I was thinking about this, guys. If your wives are flying in and you need to get around and pick up supplies and everything, here's the keys to my Suburban. And I went, you're Suburban? And she went, yeah. And I went, but we don't have insurance. She says, I'm police. It's fine. It's no problem. So she gave us the keys. We went out. We picked a whole load of stuff up, came back, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We pull up outside the hotel, the Best Western. And just as we were doing that, Dion, Val, the kids, they all turned up there. And as they came walking in, woo, police car pulls up outside. Out jumps Meg. Listen, I've been thinking about this. You guys are not staying in a hotel. You're coming home with me. And she put George in the front of the police car and let him play the siren all the way back to her house. We followed in the Suburban. We had the motorbikes with us. This is Meg up here. What's really special about this picture is you can't see all the extra people that are in this picture. But we stayed with her for 3 days. She took myself and the 2 older daughters into Washington, D.C., gave us a tour at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, which was really interesting. And she said to us, see, when you're leaving, I've got something special for you. We got up that morning for breakfast, walked downstairs, and she'd brought half the police department down with all their motorbikes and their cars, and they gave us a ride out in Manassas. I mean, outriders. How cool is that? And I turned to Ian and went, Going across America, Meg phoned every single Harley-Davidson dealership that we were getting near to and said, these guys are coming in, great PR for your bikes. So they opened up for us. This is us over at Thunder Mountain in Colorado. We got to Las Vegas, and they'd actually got in touch with the Las Vegas pipe band. And as we drove in, the pipe band was there. The Las Vegas Hells Angels came out to meet us and said, we're taking you out of Las Vegas. Just get in between us because we're not stopping for red lights. And as we're driving, these are some of the guys that took us out into the desert, dropped us off in Death Valley, and went, brilliant. They did a right, they were collecting money all the way. And of course, when we got to LA, what do you think we did? Well, we had to go to BNI head office. We had to do it. But off the back of that, we actually launched the Moebius Research Trust. And this is a picture of our second conference. And it's moving forward. We're doing a lot of great stuff. Just so you know, we pretty much raised everything we need to raise. We've made all the money we needed to make. And now it's a case of handing this over to somebody to actually do the research for us. Now, at the beginning, you were probably going, but his whole talk was Belief to Bagpipes. Where's the bagpipes come in? Right, so let's take this back. George is now 6. And George, now being 6, went to school, came in one day and said, school teacher has said to me, I am allowed to learn to play the bagpipes if I can get a tune out of this chanter. Now, chanter's a reeded instrument. If you've never tried to do this, it is very near impossible to do. You have to have cast iron lungs to get this. And he came in, and I knew what was going to happen because George is paralysed down the one side. So he can't even drink out a straw, let alone push into a chanter. So he tried it and went, and it all blew out the side, came out the other side. Dion's getting a wee bit upset at this point. And he went, Dad. And at the time I was an industrial photographer. He goes, have you still got that gaff tape in the office? Yeah. And he went in and he put the chanter in his mouth and taped up his whole mouth. And came out going, he's walking. He then turned to Dion and he went, right, Mum, I can do it. I'm going to get to play the bagpipes. Dion kind of went to bits. She was trying to be really positive, but I could see the tears in her eyes because that's a challenge. But he went to school, and the following day he taped up his mouth and he showed the tutor he could do it. Now, being in BNI, I know we've got dentists, so my thought was to get him a mouthpiece like when you're going scuba diving, and we could fit it onto there so he could actually play it. But remember earlier on I said he had a really high roof to his mouth. He learnt that if he rammed it and jammed it into the roof of his mouth and pushed his tongue against it, he could actually get a tune out the chanter. So this is our George now. I told you that having belief in others takes you on a journey. So our belief in George now was, you want to play the bagpipes, son, you play it. And his take to me was, if I'm learning bagpipes, you're learning the snare drum, and you're coming to pipe band with me. And Erin, his little sister, you can learn tenor drum. So this is us in the pipe band. Erin, that's on the left-hand side here, went in for the World Championships and became 4th in the world tenor drum. George and I have had many fun over the years. We've played at Christmas, marching through the villages. We've played at the various fetes and everything that are on. But the biggie to me was when we were asked by the Royal British Legion, because that was the pipe band we were in, to go down to the Somme 100 years anniversary. Now, I'll be honest. When we were asked to play here, there was not a single one of us that wasn't crying as we did that. I had great uncles, great cousins that all died in the Somme. So to actually march there 100 years to the day when that whistle went off was phenomenal. And it really made me realize that belief you have in others really goes there. It is about belief in yourself. It is about belief others have in you, but it's also about belief you have in others. Because if you have that belief in others, this will develop people to change their lives, your life, and enrich communities. Where have you heard that before? So when people turn to me and say, you're part of BNI, do you know where I stand with that? Belief needs inspiration. And the thing is, I want you all to take something away from this. So I'm going to give you that belief. I'm going to give you that inspiration. Because the best way to lock this in is to actually give you an emotion. So for that emotion, all I'm going to say is, over to you, George. Well done, son. Well done. That's for you. Thank you. Come in. Thank you. Thank you.